Sponsored by
Nepal को नंबर 1 हर्बल साबुन अस्मी चुरी निम
पुर्खौंसँग जोडिएको हाम्रो स्वाद अनि सम्बन्ध
थारू भिलेज नयाँ बानेश्वर बिजुली बजार काठमाडौँ
City Express Money Transfer.
Welcome and namaste to this special interview. We have a very special guest with us today. His name is Mr. Sanjay Hegde. He is a senior designated advocate at the Supreme Court of India and has been practicing law since 1989. Welcome, Mr. Hegde.
Thank you.
I'm a follower of you in Twitter, and I was just reading your description in the Twitter handle. It says that you are a lawyer and a history buff with a sense of humor and rumor. Militant secularist, good food, good friends, and good times make my day. Retweets are not endorsements. So I just want to talk to you about what militant secularism is, or in your view, what truly is secularism?
Well, secularism is not a political device of convenience. You do not choose to be secular only because, it suits you politically, because you are in a minority or because you think that a particular majority should or should not be trusted with governance. Secularism is basically saying, I don't care what your religion is, I don't care what language you speak, I don't care how different you are in other aspects. I treat you as a human being, as an equal, and if you're friendly with me, I'm friendly with you. If you're not, I'm not.
I was also reading a quote from Mr. Shahrukh Khan, who is obviously everybody knows Shahrukh Khan in Nepal. He's a very famous Bollywood actor, and he was quoted as saying that as far as the people of India are concerned, as far as the public is concerned, India is amazingly secular. So can you comment on that, maybe?
Yes, because at a human level, we live with such diversity in India. We have Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Parsis, Jews, and many of these communities have come here and stayed here from centuries. You've had Islam in India, in Kerala from the time of the Prophet. You've had Christianity in India from the time of Christ. And we all live together, we accommodate each other, we may find some things funny about each other, but that rarely ever gets into discord or a fight saying that this is mine and you are not part of it. So, Shahrukh Khan, take his personal life. He is married to a Hindu. She maintains her religion, he maintains his religion. Children follow a mix. That's the way people work around religious issues in most parts of India and in most communities and most families. And there are lots of mixed families. I mean, I have a white Christian sister-in-law among other sisters-in-law. So it's you finally treat people at a human level. And Shahrukh Khan works in the Hindi film industry. In the Hindi film industry, ultimately a lot of it depends on your capabilities, how good a worker you are. The great writer of partition in India was Saadat Hasan Manto. Saadat Hasan Manto went off to Pakistan, and in Pakistan he missed Bombay and his best friend Ashok Kumar desperately. But he wrote about partition, division on religious lines with such searing honesty that becomes the definitive work. We are, as a people, amazingly secular, largely because we know that if you go down the path of differentiation on the basis of religion, it leads to unnecessary conflict. We do not want conflict in India, and that is why, as a people, we are secular.
So, in your view, secularism is the best model for a government or a state?
When it comes to a government or a state, the question is not really secularism. The question is, what does it do with religion? How far should a government interfere in religious affairs or seek to regulate religious affairs? And most importantly, should a government be run on religious lines? Do you as a government say that, oh, this is a Hindu thing to do, and since we are a Hindu majority country, do we go as a Hindu, do what a good Hindu is required to do in his religious texts? Equally, like you've seen Muslim majority countries who say, no, this is written in the holy text and therefore we can't do anything else. That, to my mind, is not the correct way to go. It is not the correct way to go primarily because ultimately governments are not meant to run religions or to decide religious issues. Therefore, the best way for any government, anywhere in the world, is to step out of religion altogether.
Let me just follow up on that question. We said that we agree with Shahrukh Khan saying that as far as the public is concerned, India is amazingly secular. But let me just draw your attention to a fact that recently India elected Mr. Modi and his party came to power, BJP. And BJP is an openly Hindu nationalist party. So how can India, being secular, have a Hindu national government and still be secular? How can it work?
See, the point is, Prime Minister Modi heads a party which looks to Hindu interests. But the Constitution of India, under which he governs, is a secular constitution. Secularism is part of the preamble. Secularism is part of the basic structure of the Constitution as held by the Supreme Court. And so even a government with an absolute majority can't take away secularism as a constitutional value from the Constitution. Therefore, a government of laws and not of men has to run India according to the Indian Constitution. And despite whatever people say, or whatever is the largely Western view that the government is a Hindu nationalist government, they themselves do not make that claim in India. They say that we look after Hindu interests, but we look after the interests of the nation as a whole. The slogan on which Prime Minister Modi was elected was Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, meaning that he is there with everyone and everybody and development for everyone.
But that is okay with description, and that's okay to define that you are secular and government is not going to be biased towards a religion. But in the ground level, when we actually talk about people, what they think is that now, because BJP is in power and BJP is a Hindu pro-nationalist government, then pro-nationalists or Hindu extremists, they have kind of power. And in the villages, in the towns, we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've heard of news where Hindu nationalists have giving problems to others.
See, that is where it comes down to the nature of the government. Does a government want to work according to the Constitution and according to Raj Dharma, which it is obliged to do so, or will it turn a blind eye to what its supporters do? And this is not specifically a BJP problem, but all around. Even if you have a regional party, you had the communists in West Bengal. If a communist did something at the ground level because the policemen worked under the state government, sometimes that got covered up. That is a problem of governance. And any government that doesn't govern will be voted out of power sooner or later. I agree with you that there is a feeling among certain rightist groups or groups which tend to be violent, that now it is their government. There's a slogan which is sometimes heard during communal riots, that andar ki baat hai, police hamare saath hai. That kind of thinking happens and they feel emboldened. But a good government, if it wants to last and if it wants to be re-elected, will certainly take care of such problems.
So let's move to Nepal. And I just want to tell you a bit about what the things happened in the past 1.5 years or so. So when Mr. Modi was elected and BJP came into power in India, at the same time, Rashtriya Prajanata Party, Nepal, which is a Hindu, pro-monarch, pro-Hindu nationalist party in Nepal, they started to ask and demand for a Hindu state. And before, they were not heard. And immediately after Mr. Modi's election, we started to hear their voice. So it kind of coincided. So is there a correlation between these two things?
Well, Nepal is such a close neighbor of India. Obviously, what happens in India, there is an influence in Nepal, or there are echoes in Nepal. You see, that's not new. You had the Nepal Congress and the Indian National Congress in India, with the deep ties between the two of them, and sometimes working parallelly. Equally, you see, the BJP's one of the founding members was Vijayaraje Scindia, who came from a Nepalese family. So, between India and Nepal, we've had linkages at human levels, at political levels. It doesn't surprise me that, you know, the advent and the absolute majority that Prime Minister Modi got in India was also reflected in the political space in Nepal. I don't think there is anything odd about that.
So earlier you've said that secularism is kind of the best model for a state, and then you recommended, and I think you also recommend that Nepal be a secular state and adopt that model. But I just want to ask you that how can a country where more than 81% identify themselves as Hindu, how can a country like that be secular, or doesn't majority count?
Majorities and minorities are transient things at the political box office. You see, you may be a majority religiously speaking, but despite being a Hindu, you might be from one part of Nepal where you're of a different caste, or you may be a minority if counted that way. Majorities and minorities are pure matters of arithmetic, and it depends on where you draw the line. The point is that if you treat everybody equally, then the necessary fallout of that is that you have to say, I don't care about what religion you follow, I don't care what you do as far as your religious affairs are concerned, as long as you pay taxes, as long as you are a good citizen, the state will treat you equally. So that version of secularism is necessary for any government, because otherwise, if a government is seen as pushing for one side only, or being friendly to one side only and actively discouraging the other side, it makes scope for conflict, because the person who is marginalized, the group that is marginalized, says that then it has no stake in the system. That is how rebellions happen. You in Nepal may not have had it on religious lines, but on economic lines, you've had a people's movement and everything coming out of a desire for revolution. Never marginalize any section of society.
I just want to go to now specifics. Now we talked about how a state should identify itself, but let's just go to specific in our constitution, in section 31, where it talks about the right to religious freedom. There was interesting, I was in the talk yesterday, and there was an interesting comparison between the constitution in India, the words in India, and the constitution in Nepal. The constitution in Nepal says that you can protect your religion, but in the constitution of India says propagate. So how dangerous is this word protect in the constitution?
Actually, that was the word that struck me when I read the article without any context. Protect religion. Now, on the basis that a religion is in danger, that people can gather themselves around to protect it, that is a scope for so much possible strife in the future. You must remember that throughout history, on the basis that religion was threatened, you've had the Crusades, you've had the Protestants fighting the Catholics, you have the Shias fighting the Sunnis. After all, we are all children of one God, one eternal force. We may worship Him in different ways, but we are all striving to the same. And God is much more powerful than any of us. I don't think God and religion need protection. And you know, if you put protection as a constitutional value, you are likely to invite much more trouble.
So you just talked about God. Let me just ask you, Mr. Sanjay Hegde, what your faith is. What do you believe in?
Well, I think Abraham Lincoln put it right. he said, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's enough religion for me. So I am not particularly a follower of any organized faith. Culturally, I respond to various aspects of religious experience and culture. I went to school in a Catholic school. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have responded to Sufi music. So I don't think I follow any particular defined religion. There's a song which Abida Parveen from Pakistan sings very well. It says, "Are logo tumhara kya? Main janu, mera khuda jane." I think that's where I stand on faith.
So let me draw your attention to section 31, clause 3. So it talks about public health and societal health and everything. But it also, at the end, it talks about it says that any act to convert another person is punishable by law. And we know that a person cannot really convert alone. He needs a third person. If I am to convert to Buddhism, then I need to get in contact with someone who knows Buddhism. It's the same with the Baha'i or a Christian or a Jain or anybody. So how okay is it to have this phrase in our constitution?
Well, I would disagree with you on the fact that a person can't convert alone. Each one has a different religious experience. I know of people who have just due to a traumatic event suddenly found themselves in a room and there was a Bible there, or there was a Quran there, or there was a Gita there, and they became believers in whatever came to their succor at that point of time. There are various ways that one finds his personal route to salvation. But the article here is again an article which will cause a lot of trouble and a lot of unnecessary litigation in the future. Supposing you have a good friend who follows some faith, and you are not a man of faith, but then going along with the friend, then you start emulating him and you probably go along to his faith. Now, the friend may not even have wanted that you join him, but then would he be guilty? Where do you then draw the line as to what is an active attempt to conversion? I know that you see this particular article has probably come out from the thinking of the Indian Supreme Court in a 5-judge judgment way back in the 70s in a case called Stanislaus. In Stanislaus, what the court said is that everybody has a right to convert to another religion, but nobody has the right to convert another to his religion. But that judgment, to my mind, was given in unusual circumstances. India was under the emergency then. That was almost a dictatorial time. I doubt whether that judgment, if ever reviewed by a larger bench, would stand the test of time. We have in India not had this clause against anti-conversion in the constitution. We have left it to individual states to determine. Individual states have passed laws, but whenever they have sought to prosecute, those prosecutions have always failed. So essentially, when you come down to the facts of each person's journey to some path of salvation, I don't think, consistent with what I have earlier said, that the state has any business to get into what kind of religion you follow and why you follow it. Next, the state might as well ask, why do you eat rice and why do you not eat chapatis? So there are aspects of personal life into which the state should not get into.
So you, I think I read somewhere, I think she was also a lawyer, who was quoted as saying that religion is something very personal, it's a choice. So it's no use making laws about conversion or about religion, because at the end it's a person's choice and you cannot really enforce those laws. Is it true?
Well, it is true. It is true that you can't enforce those laws. I'll give you an example. For instance, the England requires its prime ministers to be Church of England. You had Tony Blair, who was prime minister for 10 years, and no sooner that he stepped off the office that he turned Roman Catholic, which was his wife's faith anyway. So personal feelings, personal paths to salvation, which ought not to be inquired into and which cannot be enforced, the law has no business getting into it.
Okay, this is my last question to you, and I think it's also a very important question. But and along with that, it's a very sensitive issue, because here in Nepal, what we have is that we don't really want someone from outside coming in and telling us what to do. So keeping that in mind, what advice do you have to the ones who are making the constitution, who are finalizing the constitution right now?
You see, constitutions often come after times of conflict. The French Revolution led to one constitution. The Americans' fight against the British finally led to that miracle at Philadelphia. India wrote its constitution after the trauma of partition and coming into an own from British rule. At that point of time, you are remembering the past, but you are looking to the future. Nepal today remembers its past, remembers the history of monarchy and other feudal rule. It remembers its people's movement. It remembers all the forces. And now you have to look to the future. You are a country which is largely young, largely brave, and you are stuck between two huge neighbors. The constitution will not be only with regard to religion or citizenship or anything. The constitution is a roadmap to the future. Look to the future with hope. Do not unnecessarily cling to the past. Do not seek to restrict future governments and future generations to what has happened in the past. Give them an open road and hope, and be sure that they will run towards freedom and towards development. Don't simply seek to tie down matters of detail. Give a broad roadmap.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hegde, for being here with us and flying all the way from Delhi to here.
It was a great pleasure, and I thank you all for calling me. I've loved what I've seen of Kathmandu. I hope to be back.
So we just had Mr. Sanjay Hegde for this special interview, and we'd just like to thank him again for his time. And we just pray and hope that Nepal will make a constitution that is for everyone and will respect the rights of everyone. This is Saral Shrestha. Thank you.
Sponsored by